Wow, this is good. First of all, I would like to thank Scott Heron of the Eugene Public Library for inviting me to read in the first of the library's summer reading series and for making this author presentation possible. It is an honor here to be here. It is also a special occasion for me to celebrate Eugene as my home. Having traveled and lived in other parts of the world, this presentation is about a journey and a homecoming. The poems I have selected for today for you reflect aspects of a life's journey that has looked at nature, family, culture, war, and peace, and global interactions. They come from my 5 books of poetry. Nature or natural science to me holds enormous curiosity. My colleague Aaron Soroyan, you might know that last name, Soroyan, says my poems find in nature the gnarled shapes of roots, the worn-out bluffs and blue sea, a heaving solace that seeks out the stories of little creatures. These first few poems are from my first book, The System is Broken. Roots. How unanswerable roots are, at least in the physical. When, why, where. I like them jumbled together or laid stretched out alone, holding them and letting them fall, swooshing through the air, making shapes, but always in an unexpected descent. The hairy ones I shy away from. The very gnarled shapes welcome a curiosity. Spread along in different planes that create their own mosaics. In their secrecy lies the future, dependent on biology, genetics. I am entranced by what they are, will become, a final disappearance, mystical. The northern country, a journey to the north, town of Tofino, British Columbia, shimmering clarity in air, water, and space. Outcroppings, mountains, the jetty, coastline with space and time, its people sparse of word with such brevity and specific response. The town comfortable, looking for that tourist dollar, setting a backdrop for both to agree. The winds pick up at 3:30. Day is ending, fish will be hitting soon. Boats and services turning toward the open sea one last time. With gear made from deer, antelope, whale, walrus, the bone carved into spear, hook, club, arrow, brought down the prey and transformed its spirit to that other place of ancestral hauntings. This is the life. Mystical images in a parade between our own, where before cellular life took form. Air of this north chilled Clare makes waves, but forever places its clothes upon the land. The land breaks up in many pieces, thrusting upward and outward, future hints of fierce volcanic weathering time. Reminders of raucous, molten, hot earth pushing everything up. Tall islands today, strong wood, fire iron wood, useful wood, moving tomorrow's life. But the tourists' game for their pleasure, their bellies full with sea life, drifts of spirits, angering that life was taken from deep blue waters. How long can they give back life? There will be another time of new inhabitants in another world, not of this system, but of other worlds measured in different terms, other concepts, piping, steamy visions, tales made from another time. Sanctuary, sanctuary of snow, of crust and rocks, a hollow in October, a language born to lament silence that keeps arriving. In the wonder of our heritage, in the hidden land where no one sees us, let us adorn ourselves in solitude. It is our grace, a space exploding where no one came from. Where I find you, not under the most common pebble shared on a wandering wave, not woven in the pattern of the stamen, leaning by a blushed wind, not found in a print, hand, foot, test tube, or other traces in the near spring of rolling meadows, flora flashing palette. I found you on dancing meadow butterflies against the arid coast colors. My wife and I lived in canyon along the central coast of California. These next two poems reflect the wildlife there. Eating spring. How can you eat spring? Well, I stroll the same way and place every morning. The scratchy sounds of live oaks announce spring, as crisp air leaves invite a returning stew. Fractured light presents itself in a green wet dance. Small birds on its arms without a dancing partner just sit tight. In an air bed of burgeoning color, purple flowers touch each other as love reaches an unknown level. Lizards with motorcycling legs chase each other for that mating thing. How do they love? Is it in that place of sweetening their own race? Go away, boar, leave us leaves alone. We want oakish mushrooms to be fed to us. The saddened boar squints and waddles away. Recalling Persian Square, that never spoke these untitled sounds. Trains, concrete taxis, steel, it played only a consistent pedal point. A hushed light squirming through mossy oaks is one more premiere we can all applaud. Butterflying lilies, they sprout from a noisy soil, transparently green, pollinating each other, lifting to air in a new navigable pattern. My steep hill walk becomes level when taking wing. They sweep the air in tango, Co-evals delight me so. When they land on my shoulder and I experience their magical touch, magic felt like this cannot be interpreted. Only the sacred in motion defines both our actions. And it is here I could disappear and dance forever with my butterflying lily. Abstraction. I believe in dreams gone wrong, skirting around the corners of consciousness. I believe and feel they come from another time, early human development filling unaccountable gaps, stretching to the next phase, to reality falling flat on its face, like not being able to see the nose on your face. You don't see it, but you can breathe. You don't have to support it, define it, lose it. Or the painter spilling his oil onto canvas, layer upon layer, color over bright and tangled corners. Has my dream gone wrong? I believe no explanation of images, just to be wherever there are more possibilities. My next poems are about family, the beginning always of culture. My dad and mom were both born in Kingston, Jamaica, where my wife and I traveled in 2010. My parents immigrated to that little town of New York City, where 4 of my siblings and I were born. Most of my early years were spent in Southern California. Mother remembered. For me and others, it was natural to be with Mom. Detailed in most ways, her paced rhythms and tempos were moderate. In apron, she would sweep us out to a jungle backyard. Cautious and conservative, she issued, "You work hard now and save these 2 quarters to build a dollar." Mathematics. Her innermost feelings only shared with a tight circle, always a ready kindness to others and strangers. Crafty jokes were diminished by a grin and tossed around in a salad mixer with other uncommon antics. No surprise with this recipe or Mom. One system of enjoyment expressed her lust for life. The Safeway, an A&P cruise, her 1950 SUV assailant shopping cart. In forward approach, despite a safety railed aisle, would not help her adversaries here. During speeds and sudden stops, only she understood, frightened all beings. In her blessed treat for a growing boy, fondness for grocery stores follows me through age, and I'm happy for it. Yes, physical penalties are paid for old age, but Mom's response, "How happy I am to pay the price." "Hey, kid, what can you do, kid?" Mom, to me, was one of the great prophets. The value of existence. When a new life begins for me, as it does, each day she would say, Mom's gift to all of us is something treasured. Oh, dreams, not yet of passion, driving the car turns and winding roads to the brown clear high bluffs and down to the dreaming sea. I grew up in the little town of Torrance, California, but my sea to embrace, much wanted than others, gave me the time, space, smell, and color to fashion out thoughts like the budding carnation, always to be, to be, to be. This was my place. I searched the wide blue-colored lines set in my mind, accompaniment for my thinking, so that they would appear in future forms, and yes, time. And yes, dreams, not yet of passion, but those of a waiting boy. Shropshire lad, I was not, but absorbed with fancies that we should hold, clearing out old myths. I could not be in a better place to begin. Others agree. True harshness can interrupt a boyhood spell that might have lingered too long, so others tell. For me, the time on the worn-out bluffs and blue sea was as important as the great reaches of time. For those microscopic creatures to imprint this planet Earth of ours. Children, stop, stop crying out, stop this brutality that appears once more in our land. Children punishing yourselves and others due to unloving ways, uncaring examples, and isolation. Insensitive batons have been passed on to you, to gangs. Stop. Give each other those moments to care, to reflect, and thus reach more understanding. Know each other, young and old, and when the pitcher is low, fill it and leave it for tomorrow's children. Stop, stop. Laugh, cry, feel together as one. New family binds from a fresh composition. Go, go, in new ladle-fed life. Life's themes can change. Go in rapid love. Love can be reflective, not tired, refreshing in sips, sips that you can learn somehow, some way. That boy next door. I don't know when he comes or why. Chaplain is in dress. Gestures, movements. His story, like many peat bore, he changes position, ferret fast. To be caught might be the game. He doesn't speak. It's a mystery. Who then is caught? 3 strikes, you're out. No. 3 strikes, you're in. Kick the can. No. The head. Who loses the habit? Priest checks you out, and how? So many in. Our next civil rights march, when will it come? Seized prisoners abused and then emptied out as corruption abounds. The boy next door knocks on our door. We pretend to be not home. Like all fearful people, we choose not to lose again. It's only that boy next door. It's a poem about my father, my talk with Dad. a steel man of youthful charm from old New York, as he would say of himself. Hell's Kitchen was his stomping ground, girders and joints he clasped with sweat and but hands, later ship construction in the yard. Nighttime, a ballroom, dancing dandy. Roseland Cotton Club were his stepping out haunts. Stories he spinned of youthful times juggled my imagination while tumbling into adolescence. Dad's love of parades, wonderful marching man like a leader of ants, and not yet confound his conquest. Son, don't show your back to the enemy. Keep your eye steeled on the infantry. Move your navy guarding the shores, for tomorrow industrially will overpower them. Remember the real war. What war? Wielding a beer can money like in the ever-open 1950s garage. A man who loved people, charmed them, and they would later be grateful for it. My socialistic uncle provided a peep of other points of view. Father considered it irrelevant. The patriotic conservative marched, ruled the turf, where father fertilized and nurtured young minds. Freedom and self-determination, he roared, but later, I wonder whose freedom and self-determination. And yet with courage, his sons and daughters would take the challenge. Deft as ever, the dancing dandy boxer reflected shots, yet when hit, always regained a balance and charged once more in conquest. It was difficult to win, and father loved to win. Earth's next era, the age of loneliness. When I was back east, I was called a war poet. So those of you who may want to jump out at this time. Earth's next era, the age of loneliness. Minimal earmarks of ageless nature are disappearing finch by finch. Will I hear tiny increments of sound paced by its bobbing head, seeking the seed? An ancient earth in this nuclear age, exhausted, pushes me forward in search of finch life. Transformational loneliness points to a surrealistic canvas with the dripping blood of the redwood. It repels the flesh of torn time. Humans, mostly extinct, remain only with bacteria and forgotten birds in this age of loneliness. This is a poem Pam and I, we traveled to India and China, and this one is called Questions on China. Sun shines through the hearty desert and plains, not excluding the running hills. Is life to be questioned here? Women stand out in their colorful saris, and they sweat in binding wheat. Their quiet men arrange the sales, marketing, and transportation of wheat to the stretched out towns of green, brown, and blue cloud skies of culture. Existence now rotates back to very early history of combating Muslim, Hindi, and Indian ventures. War, religion, and peace glitter in the mosques, forts, and flats of natural green plains. Protected, dedicated statues around 300 BC. And other early periods create questions concerning Muslim and Hindi artistic design. What are their objections? Beauty, compassion, talent, strength, weakness, individuals, human existences, in prayer, work, and play are seen through their memorable structures. The romance of emperors and queens blossom in their completed monuments, dedicated to themselves, speaking of their wars and many possessions. Commonly after a death, the wives would take their lives, missing their beloved. Welfare. It was in the spring of the year. Early rye was pushing out, and the brown ball of the hills sported a blue hair. Why do I hear hollow sounds in the landscape, the uncaring demands of unfair deliberations? Why do I hear the senseless sounds of hungry, oversized-eyed children on this worldly shore? And why do I hear the mournful songs in a land full of plenty, which must afford the same neighboring lands off beaches and shores downstream from this wasteful spring? So why do I hear the emptiness and the tearing of America, reaching, taking more, and more? Undress yourself, my soulless land. Give back to others their humility of nothingness. Your song of return to sweetness found in earth's children's smiles, or were they just dreams that we had the right to? Let me hear a rejoicing of our reinstated souls that reach to the next century and moon. Our new song sings the renewal of this earth, swaying forth, surging forward in space, singing together for the next spring, where the surprise of a blue buzz of early rye will take us for the first time on American hills. China's is in our vocabulary now, and this was the sojourn to China's capital. Beijing has an excitement in spite of a moroseness to its pollution-blind, weather-wise people, like they know something. New long rows of willows, bicycle paths, and automobile boulevards, to surging modern buildings, replicating the Empire State and World Trade Centers. As a tourist, Beijing is a mystery. Homeless people are not too common in sight. Old town Hutong is lacking in preservation compared to the city rolled off in runway of new airports and high-speed trains. A first impression kept me wondering, where is this vast population with 1.5 children allowed per family? How do they exist? In Tiananmen Square, only a few non-resistant tourists flash photos, obligates us to view Mao and the late massacre. The forbidden city is no longer forbidden, with throngs of Chinese seeking a link to their royal past, trinkets, being sold at its gates. Emperors had their way, now the people have theirs. The temple of heaven grinned at me, and Wei, our guide, spoke with reverence of the temple's era, incurring atheist belief. Will Beijing take its place with other leading partners in an Olympic world of peace, or return to earlier warring eras? Leadership, or extinction. Who will lead the way to peace? Who is capable of finding the peace within themselves? How many dollars will it take to fix the world? How many dollars will be wasted? Will it take a high-tech war force and specific missions to hunt down terrorists ourselves? Will it take the destruction of the internal freedom of the state to win this war? What war anyway? Tactical thinking and specific movements are only against the enemy. The industrial military complex is still running things. Who will lead our children to better lives in the midst, losing sight of their miracles, their soft home touch in wilderness, gone blind, torn from limbs and families? When you shut down your electric distractions, not swallow any more pills or shed responsibilities, come outside with me. The children play in the sand just beyond the trees with thorns, soon to endure what has reaped from glut of some few on the top shouting out, "At least we are alive," with this experience of having hope. You would rather seek death, for it's one of the only things we think we control before it controls and consumes us. Who among us will sit and offer on the table and say this war formed the break of promises? War poem 2. This unthinkable Afghanistan war continues its stench, flares up in the faces of young soldiers, lonely, frightened, like dying mirrored images of wretched past sights. War turns new glories to another kind of enemy. Our nation swaggers as other worlds. Young martyrs jump to a fresh call. Mullahs incite a new religious war as recruits hail them as clear-sighted visionaries of hope. These new revolutionaries are not Saddam or Al-Qaeda followers, but new natural predators as man shuns nature with unending destruction, expanding disease, predictable instabilitators, upset Earth's balance, and other stinging malfunctions. Our children go unfed. Overpopulations, cries for death. We wait for a light and its warmth, a pierced opening for the goodness to see the turn of the swallow, a new breath to a soon-to-be dying earth. It is here we wish to remain, on the bridges of swirling culture and peace. Whether America, Europe, Egypt, Middle East, South America, Africa, Asia, China, Korea, or Japan, no more war. Cease. Come back, peace. Oh, peace, where are you? What are you hiding for? I only see your other side, producer of tears and broken, torn bodies, shaken souls, frozen and shattered through miles of thoughtless time. Come, place your blanket on the frozen ones, and lead the new blinded to an awakening of virgin stretched light. The center of the universe is waiting for us, soundless in this body, for a new music not yet reached. Once again, come, damage is done. See where our systems are broken. No repair here. Demosthenes is shamed by recent events. Freedoms and their guarantors diminished by greedy decisions. Tossed in an ill wind by Jeffersonian masked tyrants. Citizens confused by such wanton acts reach for a new dawn, still moistened by tears of non-represented children. The howl of Ginsberg required now by the trampling of brown lashes and sagebrush rebels, worst of our environmental friends, as well as WTO's fraudulent legends of immoral ethics. Where are your voices? Move now out of an empire disgraced by our fallen false leader. Return toward a common ground of sustaining economics and conservation. Partisan victories be trashed. Come new brushed wind, winding down our valleys. Toss grace with gentle rain to seed a new republic. The dream of united learning and unified learning, the Ionian enchantment believes the world is orderly and can be explained by a small number of natural laws. The Enlightenment period got it right the first time. The greatest enterprise of the mind always will be the attempted linkage of science and the humanities. From a dear friend, Edward O. Wilson, in his book Consilience, the Unity of Knowledge. The past. Who am I to live in the past? Who are we to walk in the shadows of memories? We stand behind the curtain of life when it comes to draw upon us the miracles that are the wonders of now. Registration. By the end of January each year, registration is complete. All poets accounted for, none on the loose. Were you one, or have you ever been, are the questions posed by the officials of Eugene? Protected and secure, the registration of all poets, name by name. Our community is safe. The wind blows. Patriots march. And the orchard is in season. You can never be sure what poets are up to. Let's keep them in line. No grand expression to let our secrets out. No mention to peace or nature or occupy. Registration is a must. Our right. The authorities need to know who's who. Like the Jews in the ghetto, registered and tagged. Poets are segregated and noted Fearful they write at night behind closed doors and read in broken shadows. Who may be looking? Will fingers be pointed? Lock them up. No, that's too cruel. Just have them sign in registration for all poets. That is the rule. Let me end here with a poem called Skylark. Fields run across the sky, no stuttering here. It's like the upside moments of life, no answers to that simple red question, why? Warmth is in her hands, scattered thoughts left alone, like our birds of peace. Freedom enters the bride of the wandering circle, and yes, life can lose its way from early periods of history. We remember Kant and his idealizations of pure earth, pure water, and pure air. Look, the skylark sails with the wind, patterns for the causal laws. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see.
Thank you, Roy, and thank you again for coming down to the library today for a summer reading presentation. Don't forget to check out all the great stuff we have. And Roy, can you stick around and talk to people?
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for Roy? He's willing to stick around.
Oh, that's grand. No questions.
I personally would ask him about playing with Glenn Miller myself, but
About what?
Playing with Glenn Miller.
Well, Glenn Miller, they kept him.
come on, Roy.
Glenn Miller isn't dead. About his work, we kept it going in the Air Force, which was his military band, and we had great times. I used to sneak away when I was in Europe. I was there about two and a half years, and get in. I had a little Mercedes. It was broken down. I didn't know it in World War II, and but I used to try to get away from it. But the people there in these little towns in Germany loved to invite me to have, to have a drink. And I always used to bring in some of the great songs of him. He was a wonderful, wonderful composer. The real type of stuff. It's not going away. It's going to be there. So that'll be about it.
Yeah, Roy, how did you shift from music to poetry?
Or vice versa.
Well, how do you shift from music?
Well, make the transition and whatever.
Yeah. When I was a little boy, about 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old, I loved the feeling of sound and different kinds of shapes of things. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I came from a large family. Originally, it was a triplet, I understand. Maybe Pam can correct that. but I was right here in the middle, and my father was a kind of guy that wanted very, very badly to tell what we're supposed to do. Remember that? You remember those years? And so I was appointed to be a lawyer. Jeez. I went to UCLA, I dropped out of UCLA and went in the Air Force. But poetry is very, very much like the arts and very much, like music and sound. I don't find any really great differences in them. And I think other poets will say the same thing. I have just a couple of things. Poetry doesn't transform the world. It embodies the particular acts and feelings of being in the world. The things of the world resist words and wordiness and certain other things. We are what we network, what our bundles of nerve cells and their extensive axons that shoot and hook them to other cellular networks that makes us. And it's that point that had something to do with that, leaving music
Thanks.
and going in poetry. Is that okay?
That's great. Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question back there?
Another question? I keep on walking off.
Right, I'm trying to follow you.
It's like,
Well, I think Roy wants to leave. You can talk to him afterwards.
Hey, Ray, you have one more?
I had sort of a pair of questions. A, do you ever write poetry as in dialogues of characters? And B, how would you characterize the speaker in most of your poems? Would the speaker be different from you as the observer, or is the speaker sometimes a character that observes separate from you?
yeah, it's kind of like a theater world in some places. And that character, in many times, is me and what I've been through. If that says something to your question. You know, the great thing about today for me is all the loving people I see out there.
Thank you, Roy.